The forest was eerily silent that night, the kind of silence that makes every snapping twig sound like thunder. The moon hung low, scattering silver light across the misty path, where a woman ran barefoot, her dress torn, her breath sharp and desperate. Branches whipped against her skin, but she didn't dare stop. Someone was chasing her, shadows too dangerous to name. Her name was Emily, a young investigative journalist who had uncovered truths she was never meant to see. Powerful men didn't want her stories printed, and now their threats had turned into reality. She had fled into the forest for her life, not knowing if she'd ever come out. And then, just when her knees buckled and her lungs screamed, she stumbled into someone. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, with tired but piercing eyes. His clothes were rugged, his beard rough, his hands calloused. For a moment, Emily thought she'd run straight into another danger. But then she saw something else, his little daughter standing behind him, clutching a lantern, her eyes wide with worry. "Please," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "They're after me." The man's eyes sharpened instantly. He didn't ask who. He didn't ask why. He simply nodded and said in a calm, steady voice, "Stay behind me." His name was Jack. No one in the nearby town knew much about him. Just that he was a single dad raising his daughter alone in a small cabin deep in the woods. He kept to himself, worked odd jobs, and lived quietly. People thought he was just a simple man, maybe broken by loss. What they didn't know was that Jack carried a past so heavy, he had buried it deep beneath layers of silence. But that night, his past came rushing back. Within minutes, the shadows Emily feared appeared between the trees, men with flashlights, harsh voices, and weapons in their hands. They spread out, hunting. Emily trembled, but Jack stayed still, his body tense, like a soldier remembering a battlefield. "Lily," he whispered to his daughter, "go inside. Don't open the door until I come back." The little girl hesitated, but obeyed. Jack turned to Emily. "If you want to survive, you'll do exactly as I say." Something in his tone, calm yet commanding, told her he wasn't just an ordinary man. The hunters came closer. Jack moved like a shadow himself, guiding Emily silently through the thick woods. He knew every path, every hiding spot, every sound the forest made. At one point, a man passed just feet from them, flashlight sweeping the ground. Emily's heart stopped, but Jack's steady hand on her arm told her not to move, not to breathe. When the danger passed, she looked at him in awe. "Who are you?" she whispered. Jack didn't answer. Not yet. Hours passed like minutes as they evaded their pursuers. Finally, when they reached a hidden clearing, Jack spoke. "I used to be someone else," he admitted quietly. "Before Lily. Before this cabin." His eyes clouded with pain. "I worked for people who trained me to fight wars that weren't mine. I did things I'm not proud of. When my wife died, I walked away from it all. I swore I'd never go back." Emily listened, realizing the man who had saved her wasn't just a recluse, he was a man who had once lived in the shadows of violence, now trying to raise a daughter in peace. But peace was no longer an option. The hunters grew more aggressive, and soon they discovered the cabin. Jack knew running forever wasn't possible. So, he made a choice. For his daughter. For Emily. For himself. That night, the forest became a battlefield once again. Jack, who had sworn never to fight, picked up the skills he had buried. With traps he had built long ago, with instincts that had never dulled, he turned the hunters' pursuit into their downfall. Emily, though terrified, stood by him, helping where she could, her admiration for his strength and heart growing with every passing second. At dawn, silence returned to the forest. The danger was gone. The hunters had been stopped, their power broken by a man they underestimated. Emily sat on the porch of the cabin, exhausted, watching the sunrise. Lily curled up beside her father, safe and sound. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt hope. "You saved me," she said softly, her eyes on Jack. "But more than that, you showed me what real courage looks like. Not just fighting, but living, for her, for love, for second chances." Jack looked down at his daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm no hero," he murmured. "I'm just a dad, doing what I have to." But Emily smiled, because to her, and to Lily, that was exactly what made him one. In time, Emily's story would be told, and the corruption she had uncovered would come to light. But more importantly, Jack's story, the one he thought he had buried, found a new chapter. One where he wasn't just a soldier of the past, but a father of the present, and perhaps, the beginning of something more with a woman who saw not his scars, but his heart. Sparkle's inspiring message to end on. Sometimes the strongest people are not the ones who chase power, but the ones who quietly protect, love, and endure. True courage is not in the battles we fight outside, but in the battles we win within, for family, for hope, and for a future worth living.